What is it that all our dads are drinking that they don't have anything to say to us? My dad hangs up on me. On the menu today at Sarah's Soju Cafe is yogurt soju. So grab your mugs and let's chat about what we owe our family and what we don't. Welcome back, Soju Shotties, to another episode of Soju with Sarah. James, do you have something you want to say today?
I got exposed last week because I wasn't on the podcast and someone guessed why.
Because you lost the dance competition. Sorry, dance battle.
I lost the dance battle. For everyone who is curious and nosy in my DMs about it, just kidding, no one messaged me. Yes, I did lose. And I'm proud of it, I'll wear it because I think you guys were just overpowering me in the dance competition. So,
everyone came out from the woods.
You mean the woodworks?
The woodworks.
Yeah.
It's coming out of the woods.
It was quiet for... No. Everyone was quiet one week and then suddenly the next week they're all dancing again. It's like, where was the dancing before,
It's right.
But anyways, yeah. So you're setting a great example. However, you're too late too. I don't really know who won, to be honest, but I think all the soju shotties won. And I think I lost.
Oh, I love that.
So congrats to you guys. I'm retiring, so you're never going to see me dance again.
Oh, don't say that. Maybe there will be an ultimate soju shotty dance battle next year.
Oh.
That you can join in on again.
The second annual?
The second annual.
Yeah, well, next year I'll see you guys.
My favorite one was the mosquito.
Oh, the mosquito up and down?
Yeah.
Yeah, that one was pretty good. That was iconic. Yeah. And I liked the bunny one with the funny emoji face.
There was a bunny one?
Yeah, it's like a huge bunny emoji. Oh, that was like dancing.
Oh yeah, I love it. Maybe we can show it here. Yeah. I think those were our tops.
Those are our tops.
Unfortunately. Yeah. Anyways, congratulations to everyone who participated in the dance competition. If this is your first episode, there was no actual dance competition. However, in spirit, there was in our comment section.
Yeah, I was running for the last 4 weeks, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Probably the longest dance-a-thon we've had.
Yeah. How did you guys make it?
Yeah, I hope you're okay. Thanks for sticking with us.
Before we get into the episode, let's do a little drink of the day. We have a mix of yogurt drink.
This brand is called Felice, and it's a Japanese drink.
And mixed with soju.
Neat Soju, our unofficial drink sponsor, because we always drink this.
Cheers.
Cheers.
Today's episode, we wanted to talk about family relationships because as we enter our late 20s...
We're already there.
Okay. As we are in our late 20s. Something that we think about a lot is how much we owe our parents. For me, it's my parents because I don't have siblings, but I'm sure for some of you guys, or for you, for example, there's a lot of family dynamics, whether it's relating to money, emotional support, energy, like however much you give to your parents or your family in different ways. I think a good place to start with this episode is maybe the question of, do you feel like you owe something to your family? This could be your parents, your siblings, because you have 3 of them, or even your extended family, because I know different people have different relationships with their family and the people they're closest to. And there's different forms of indebtment, if you would call it that.
When you told me we're doing this episode, I actually had to sit down and think about what my actual philosophy towards this is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I feel like I owe my parents anything. I think I want to call them more often because I don't call them enough. I want to give them more financial support because I'm not really doing that right now. Yeah, and I want them to have a better life through my ability to give them money, hopefully soon, but not yet. Yeah, but I don't feel that I have to do that. It's just something I want to do.
I see.
What do you feel you owe your parents? I guess in general, what do people owe their parents? And then do you feel like you owe your parents?
I think in general, there's no formula for what you owe your parents because everyone's this is the answer that we give on the podcast a lot of the times, but everyone's situation is different. So it's hard to give a one-liner to generalize what people go through. I think my perception of what I've owed my parents has changed every few years in my life. A lot of my earlier decisions that I made for myself were centered around wanting to give my parents a better life. And so I think a lot of my goals for saving money came from the desire to give my parents a better life. I think for some children of immigrants that maybe come from a similar background or maybe different background, I think a common thread is that we want to give back to our parents financially to make up for maybe some of the financial turmoil, emotional turmoil that they went through moving to a new country and raising us. I stand with you in the fact that it doesn't feel like I have to give back to my parents in any way, which I think thankfully is a principle that my parents have instilled in me, which is that I don't need to give them anything. But I think when you come from a background where you see your parents working really hard, maybe working long hours, working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, 4 jobs, you always feel like they did more for you. And when I say family, this could also mean like your siblings. If let's say like your siblings kind of raised you, or your grandparents, and I know different dynamics exist out there, but for me, I feel like the financial aspect drove a lot of my like obligations to myself and my family early on. And then right now, I think as much as I do have that desire to like retire my parents fully, take them on vacations and do things with them that I think they would enjoy and they would maybe experience for the first time, I also feel some sort of like commitment to be present and like to always be available for them. This might also be something similar that children of immigrants experience, but it's like I did most of their paperwork, if not all of the paperwork. Anything requiring English translations, I would be on the phone as a like 8-year-old pretending to be my mom, talking to like a sales rep or some IRS government official or something like that. And I think that pattern has become a habit in a way that like right now in my life, I also feel like I owe them my time in a way.
I was going to say, I do remember the first few years of our relationship, you used to do way, way, way more on a like very minutiae, like everyday basis for your parents. And like, if I'm being honest, that did used to frustrate me because we'd be like we'd be like watching TV, eating dinner. Like, let's say we just started cooking or we just sat down to eat dinner and like watch TV. You suddenly get a call from your parents and you drop everything to help your mom for like an hour, like actually an hour, and you'd step away and I'd be like, am I supposed to eat now? What am I supposed to do?
Remember.
I would kind of feel a little hostage, and I know you felt the strong obligation to always help your parents with stuff, no matter what it was. It was like the smallest like tax things or legal things or whatever it is. I think you're a really good daughter for like helping your parents with those things, but I think it's really tough to know where the line is between like you need to be able to figure this out on your own versus like let me just help you because I know you're, you know, less equipped to do this.
I think one of the challenges of being like first gen immigrant. Wait, are we second gen? We're first gen. We're second gen. I don't know how the logic works. I think I'm in
between you and the first.
Wait, what?
Because like I immigrated here, right?
Oh,
I
yeah,
actually
yeah,
moved
yeah,
here
yeah.
from another country, but then you're like the daughter of immigrants.
Yeah. Is that considered first or?
I think I'm like 1.5 and you're like second.
Second? Okay. But I think that's the challenge of second gen then, right? Like I'm trying not to make this episode all about like being a child of immigrants, but I do think the experience there is that when your parents have uprooted their whole lives to come somewhere new, you can't expect them. It almost feels villainous of you to expect them to adjust to a new life, language-wise, financially, culturally. And so I think like most of us second gens can probably relate to the fact that you take on these tasks not because you necessarily want to, but because you kind of like empathize with your parents a little, you know, you empathize with their situation and you know that they're very like busy just trying to scrap together things, you know. I also do want to flag that our experience maybe is a little bit different because I think the only child experience is different than the sibling experience. So I feel like part of why you would get more frustrated whenever I had to pick up the phone and take those calls is because your parents maybe don't do that as much with you as like ask you for help because there's like 4 of you guys. But then when you're an only child, you carry this sort of responsibility and like understanding that you are the only one that can do certain things for your parents. I'm going to unveil a little bit of our relationship from like back in the day, but I think you used to get angry at me for taking these calls, which I understand because we would be in the middle of something, but I had like a habit of addressing whatever my parents needed to be addressed in the moment because I never know what the situation is that they need me. And in my head, if they're calling me and I don't know what the situation is, I want to make sure that it's not like an emergency. So that's why I used to always pick up the phone.
Yeah. But
I understood that it was disruptive, right?
Yeah, but it's not only like me, it's like any friend hangout, any party, you'd like leave for an hour. And then it'd be like, where did Sarah go? And why did she leave this small hangout just to like be on the phone for an hour?
But that's where I think I'm trying to maybe like learn and grow because nowadays my parents send me a text or if they call me and I don't pick up, for them to just send me a text saying what exactly they need, so that I know if I'm in the middle of something semi-urgent that I will respond to them later or call them back later. And I think that's a healthier balance. But then going back to the bigger question that this whole episode is about, is what do we owe our parents? I think that's something I've learned, which is I don't owe them every single moment that I have where they need something.
Yeah.
In a way. And I don't want to slander my parents at all, because I love my parents and they've done so well taking care of me and letting me become the person that I am. But I think this is like a nuance in like family dynamics that I do want to talk about, because I think it does maybe affect other people too, finding the line between like you and your family.
Yeah. I do feel like especially our generation and younger has been trending towards more like, you know, there's that saying like blood is thicker than water.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like a lot of people don't subscribe to that anymore, and what people subscribe to is like your chosen family is like your true family, whether that is your current actual blood family or like friends that you consider family.
Oh, can you elaborate? Like, you think that our generation doesn't stand by family as much as previous generations?
I think a lot of us still stand by our families, and like I certainly do too. I just think it's like more acceptable to cut your family off or like set boundaries with your family, just because like they're really like toxic presence in your life. And like I'm not talking about us, because that's not really us, but I don't know, in like prepping for this, I saw a lot of articles talking about that stuff. It's more in our vocabulary, and like we're more okay with maybe cutting off our family more, just because the fact that we're blood related doesn't mean that I owe them something, or owe them their presence in my life.
That's really interesting. Why do you think that's the case? Because I don't think I fully subscribe to that. Is that bad to say? Like, I still stand by like family is family.
I mean, I think I generally agree with you too, but there's like some line, right? Like, let's say your cousin steals like 150,000 from you, or like scams you or something, right? It's
I
like,
see.
are you really going to consider them family? And if your parents are like, yeah, but he's your cousin, like you should still be nice to him and let him come to our family gatherings, like you probably wouldn't be okay with that, right?
Okay, I understand that situation. I'm just like curious why there's a trend towards like letting go of family so easily in this generation. Because maybe it's also easier to make connections. Our producer's trying to weasel his way back into work life.
He feels
again.
bad about leaving our show for Soju Think You Can Dance. So,
but the question is why? Like, why our generation is so quick to...
I think it's the same reason that people are like quicker to like abandon friends just to protect their peace. You know, it's like, don't be afraid to cut toxic people from your life, including friends. I think there's like elements of truth to that, right? There's like extreme cases where I think that's fair, but then I think, it excuses a lot of confrontation that you need to have with relationships that is required for growth in those relationships.
Mm-hmm.
This whole conversation's about like, what do we owe our families, and like especially our parents?
Yeah.
That could imply that parents feel entitled to something from us, like whether it's their presence in their lives or money or whatever it is. Why do you think parents do feel entitled to their children's lives? Whether that's their career decisions, whether they're getting married, who they're getting married to, if they're getting money from them, whatever it is, like why do they feel entitled to that?
You know, I was actually thinking about this recently because I had a conversation with my mom recently, and I think she never told me this and it made me kind of tear up, but she said, oh my God, I think I'm going to tear up again. There's been a lot of tears this week. I think she said something along the lines of like, when I left for college, she almost like didn't know, thanks for the preemptive tissue, but she almost like didn't know who she was anymore because she had spent so many years, like 17, 18 years, taking care of me and putting me first above anything else. And that's just the type of mom that she is. She's like so caring and puts everyone before herself. But when she said that, it made me really sad because she said she cried a lot, and I didn't know that, because when I went to college, it's a new experience for me. I get to meet new people. I get to surround myself with a new community. I kind of like built a new family in a way, going to college. But then to know that my mom's life didn't change and she actually lost one of the biggest like pillars in her life, it made me really sad. And I feel like it makes so much sense that as a parent, if you've raised your kid for like many years and tried to be the best parent possible, that you do want your kid to acknowledge that. Like, I feel like when we're young and we're like 18, 19, we almost don't even think about how much of our parents' lives they gave up to take care of us. That it's really saddening to think about. And like, we've talked about family planning, like we've family planned because I froze my eggs and everything. But I think to actually live through the responsibility of raising kids is a very different act than to anticipate and think about it, right? And like nowadays we're really hesitant because we know how much the commitment will be. Like we can understand how much of our lives raising kids will take up. I honestly think I wouldn't call it like entitlement that parents have to wanting their kid to in some way give back to them, but it's almost like as a parent I would hope that my kid empathizes and understands I gave a lot to them.
Yeah. Well, thanks for sharing that. I feel like that's very emotional, but
Guys, it's been an emotional week for me. These tears aren't coming
I think it's
from
because
nowhere.
your mom is such a good mom to you, and so like you can't help but just recognize that. I mean, even when I think about my parents and my mom, like if I really think about it, I might start kind of tearing up.
Yeah.
Just because like I know all the like hardship and adversity they go through to like raise their kids, or they did go through. But yeah, I do feel like when I ask the question of like why do parents feel entitled, I don't think our parents really feel entitled, like based on what you tell me about your mom and what I know of her, and then like what I know of my parents. I think they hope to have like a good relationship with us. I think they hope that we want to call them and like have them in our lives and have them be active in our kids' lives,
Yeah.
hopefully. For a lot of people out there though, especially parents that are very like demanding,
Mm-hmm.
there is a level of entitlement that we are lucky not to experience, which is like
Yeah.
control over their kids' careers. And like if you don't do what they want, they're gonna like be incessant about giving you criticism for it, or like if you're like financially dependent on them, they might be like, we're cutting you off if you don't do this certain
Mm.
thing. Like I wonder where that level of entitlement comes from with parents, because I think we are really lucky to have parents who don't demand that of us.
Yeah. I think what you're getting at is a little bit of like a dream fulfillment entitlement that some parents have. It's I put my career or life or whatever else on hold, and I had this dream that I want you to fulfill for me because I'm giving you everything that I have so that you can kind of do what I originally envisioned for myself.
So it's like some level of selfishness, I guess, just because maybe they want their kid to do something that they didn't get to do.
I think sometimes it's that, but other times I feel like it's because the parent thinks they know what's best. And maybe you do know what's best as a parent. Like you do know that getting into a good school is going to give your child a better life, is going to help them find a career that financially supports them. But I think where the disconnect happens is a lot of the times, I mean, yeah, this makes sense, but like you are a different person than your parent. If you're a parent, your child's a different person. Maybe what they want in life is different from what you want. And I feel this way sometimes too. Like if I'm talking to my younger cousin or someone else who's younger, like I feel like I've lived through certain parts of my life and like gone through experiences. But I think the point you have to check yourself is like, is your experience actually representative of an experience that they're going to go through or what they actually care for or want in their lives? Sometimes that answer is no. But I think where parents might kind of overstep is like when they feel like they know what's right or they want you to fulfill your dreams. You know those stories of like parents who raise their kids or like force their kids to be child actors just because their acting career didn't succeed?
Yeah.
I think that's a great example where like it's a dream fulfillment thing for the parent that they want their child to accomplish something that they couldn't accomplish themselves.
Well, I think it's interesting because I feel like I tend to think of it as like purely selfish from the parent a lot of the time, just because let's just say that the whole trope of like an Asian parent being like, you have to go to Ivy League, you have to get this high paying job, or like you're done, like
Mm.
I feel like I used to only see that, even just before you said that, I just think of it as like kind of selfish, just because it's like a wish fulfillment or a way to make the parent look good in front of other parents, and it's just me, how does my parent serve me? But I think some parents, if I really think about it, some parents do grow up with an extremely traditional mindset of like great college equals good for their life, or like great
Yeah.
college equals good job equals money equals safe life and career for my kid, and I just want them to be happy.
Mm.
And so it's not like a completely selfish thing a lot of the time. It's just that's what they know is like academic success equals life success and happiness. Therefore, if my kid's not doing that, I think they're gonna like fail and not be happy. And so sometimes it's like, I don't want to call it ignorance, but maybe it's just like
Lack of understanding the generational difference.
Yeah, there's like a generational gap and
Yeah.
a cultural gap and a traditional mindset that is not adapted to like the current day of what is possible.
But I think you can't really blame like the previous generation for not understanding this generation,
I think
right?
you definitely can't blame that. I think you can blame the selfish version of it, which is like, I
Mm.
need my kid to like succeed for me so I can dangle them around like a medal to other
Okay.
people.
Well,
Yeah.
I can see that situation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I feel like I've seen like tiger parents in action, and I feel like there's a lot of toxic indebtment thrown around, or like verbalization of indebtment. And I feel like that's a really bad characterization of it. But basically, there's a lot of like verbalized, you should try hard because I came to America to do this for you. Like a lot of like guilt tripping that happens in like those toxic families, because generationally there's that gap. I know in my parents' generation, family meant something different, career meant something different. There was also no technology and no social media. So like building a career was almost always very traditional, because what were the other options, right? So it's like hard to ask them, going back to like, it's hard to ask them to adapt to a new culture. It's also hard to ask them to adapt to a new generation. Like I know even my parents are not the most tech savvy. So when I tell them things like, oh, you can actually build businesses and build careers online, it's hard for them to wrap their heads around that, you know?
Yeah.
But I see what you're saying, that sometimes it's a selfish act. I think especially when the child is used as like a prop to make them look good, that's a toxic family dynamic.
Yeah. Something that you mentioned was around like realizing that your kid is a person in their own right and they might have different natural inclinations or like not want to do the things that you necessarily want them to do. In an article that I was reading before this, they're talking about how they think that parents should treat their kids like almost like strangers in their house.
The person who wrote the article said that.
Yeah. Strangers
Oh,
in that
interesting.
they are like new people where you need to learn
Yeah.
about them and like learn what they want and allow them space to like grow and develop opinions, and like you just nurture that and like treat them like they are not an extension of you but a person, like just a different person. And I don't know exactly how I feel about that, but I think I generally agree, just because I think I feel like a lot of parents come into parenting with their own, I'll call it like a selfish desire for what they want their family life to look like. You come in wanting to give them like your music tastes, your philosophies on life, your religion or whatever it is, and like some of those things are like pretty innocuous and like it's awesome to share your tastes with your kids or whatever. But I think a lot of the time parents do come in with like, they have this notion in their head about what they want their kids to be like.
Yeah.
And that, you know, who knows where that comes from. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting how this article is like framing it like you shouldn't parent like that. You should just parent as if they are their own person, you know. I guess it's somewhat like nature versus nurture, and you know, I just thought that was interesting.
That's an interesting article, or like that's an interesting take, because I feel like we're so deep in the weeds of like gentle parenting, like this era of gentle parenting, that I wonder how actually great gentle parenting is. Not saying that I'm on the full end of like tiger mom. However, I feel like there's certain principles you still have to instill in your kid, right? Like kindness and like how to be generous as a person. Like those things you can't just expect them to learn, or maybe they do, but it's just like, I don't know. I kind of also I also want to have like a hand in like shaping my child's morals and values in a way.
I think I like probably bastardized the message of that article a little bit, because I think something else they said was that they felt like good parenting is like you're absolutely allowed to give them your values and what you believe and teach them that stuff, but you also need to give them the ability and space and lack of pressure for them to renounce it or like leave it or do something different with their life or adopt a different belief system. And if you're allowing them to do that and you're teaching them your values, like that's fine. But I think where they take issue is like when you instill all these things in them or try to force them into this lifestyle, but then you don't give them the space to like think differently or adopt a different system.
Okay, yeah, I kind of stand by that. Taking this in a different direction, I know you have a lot of extended family in Korea that you've visited. Do you feel some sort of I don't like the word indebtedness, but I'm trying to think of a different, like a synonym for that.
Well, I think it's interesting because like the same way we are talking about this, I think like our parents probably talk about it for their like families, like their siblings, their parents.
Yes, how much you do for your family, right?
Yeah. For my relatives, I don't feel nearly as much pressure, or like I don't give as much. Like I think about my parents a lot more, right, than like my relatives. Although I like care about my relatives a lot, I would like to help them financially too, but I don't see that as a duty, even more so than I don't see that for my parents. I do know that like when I send my parents money, they do give some amount of that to like their parents. And then
Yeah.
I know my dad and his siblings have like a shared pool of like emergency funds that they contribute to each month for my grandparents or like my dad's parents. So I know they think about it a lot, but I don't personally, if I make a ton of money, I definitely want to help them out. But at this point in time, I'm just worried about us and my parents. And then my siblings are pretty self-sufficient. So
Yeah. Have you ever felt like you owe your siblings anything? Because I know you're a very caring brother in the sense of like you always feel protective over your sister, but have you ever felt like you actually owe them something?
I felt like an obligation or like brotherly duty to like help my sister out at times when she wasn't working or like was still in college or like, send her money, a little bit of money or whatever. But no, I don't think I really feel that pressure from them. Yeah. I think maybe
That's
if
fair.
they were like messing up in life and like really needed financial support to get out of something, I would definitely maybe feel some of that. But yeah, they're pretty self-sufficient. So yeah.
What about your partner in life? Because they are also family. Like, what do you feel like you owe your direct
I think you absolutely have an
partner?
obligation to your partner, yeah, financially. There's always like limits, right?
Yeah.
Like if they're disrespecting your money or like not warranting your support because they're like messing up in life too, like I feel that's a different discussion. But I feel like, if you fell on hard times, let's say you like got scammed out of a ton of money or something, like,
Yeah.
I would try to support you. And I would, if I need to go find a job that's not making videos online and being a bum, then I would go do that to support you.
Correction. Making videos online does not correlate to being a bum.
No, yeah,
James
those are
is-
separate things. I
James is
can be
talking
both at once.
James is talking about his independent second career as a bum.
Yeah. That's been a long standing one. Yeah. Well, I mean, what about you? Do you feel obligated
bum?
to your I feel your bum. Yeah. What? Do you feel obligated to your relatives? And then also to me?
I think I don't have that relationship with my relatives the same way I have with my parents. I know some families are more enmeshed in a way, like there's just a more long-standing like relationship with them. I think the challenge is I'm just like physically not close to most of my family. Like most of them are in China, and the ones in America I think I see for holidays, but it's not as frequent. And maybe the underlying also reason I don't feel that much indebtedness to them is like they're all pretty self-sufficient, like the same way you feel about your siblings. I think if things were different, like my family needed something, be it money, emotional support, other things, I would definitely think how I can contribute because they are family. But it's weird because family that you have strong connections with, I think you feel differently than family you don't have strong connections with, right?
Mm-hmm. Do your relatives ever give you some sort of weird financial pressure or give them the sense that they're entitled to something of yours?
Oh, yes. That was one thing. Oh my God. Yeah. Thanks for reminding me. I wanted to talk about this. I think now that we're like 27, 28, the pressure or the indebtedness that I feel with extended family is regarding the next generation. So I'm oversharing, but this past Christmas, no, I wasn't home for Christmas. I went home for Chinese New Year, and my grandma sat me down because my grandma's in her 90s now. So she's very old and she's slaying her 90s. I'm just gonna say that. she's
slaying.
Sharp mind, but she sat me down for like an hour, and I cannot express how sometimes it is really frustrating when your grandma sits you down to like lecture you on one specific thing. But she's like from a much different generation, so like having kids by this age is considered very old, and it's definitely not young. But I do think our generation is more attuned to having kids.
Average age of parent has just going up and up, right?
Every year,
as
right?
Home ownership age is like going up and up.
Yes. Yeah. And she sat me down, and I don't know, there's something with Chinese grandmas. They're very stern. And I think my grandma was definitely more of a tiger mom type, but she was like basically lecturing me on how I'm getting ridiculously old and I need to have kids, and she will not stand by me not having kids by the end of this year. And I was like, this year? And the only way that you appease Chinese grandmas is literally to agree. Otherwise, they don't let you go. And then they make you feel bad, and they're like, 你不听话. It's like, you don't listen. Like, you're basically making me feel like a bad grandkid. And I think that's part of what my indebtedness feels like nowadays, because going back to what I mentioned about like being an only child, I feel like I'm also the only one that can provide the next generation right now, for her especially, because she's in her 90s and all my cousins are younger, like college or younger. And that gives me some pressure because I can't completely do family planning without thinking of my family. You know, I can't think about having kids and just keep delaying it because I know people are waiting. I think this is especially a hard challenge for me is like, you don't want to be selfless and not think about your family at all and just take your time with having kids because, you know, if you're the only one that can provide grandchildren, you should be mindful. But I also don't want to be selfless in the sense of I'm just doing this for them. I'm not ready to be a mom, but let me have a kid because my parents and my grandma wants.
Yeah. I think this is where a lot of the cultural stuff comes in. Although I'm sure, let's say like a white family, I'm sure this stuff exists for there too. But I think especially with cultures where it's like they famously prioritize like the family structure and grandparents, like you are not just Sarah, you are a Pan, and in the Pan family, like you have a duty to like
yeah,
I know you have a duty to continue what they have been doing, right, with their family.
The legacy.
And so it's like if you're not doing what they have been doing, it's like you're kind of betraying the structure that is in place in their minds. And so she's like, you need to do it so I can like witness it too, you know?
Yeah. It's like a fulfillment thing, like a duty.
And
like
to her, it's like culturally, she's allowed to feel that way.
Yeah, because it makes no sense that I haven't had a kid, right, in her eyes.
Yeah, because it's like I did this. Yeah. Your dad did this or your mom did this. Yeah. It's like, why aren't you doing it yet?
Yeah, the generational gap's really interesting because I think if you look at my parents' generation, I think family was way more of a unit. But nowadays, people are individuals, like individuals with their own mind, their own ideas, their own ambitions. And I'm trying to blame it on technology again too, but I feel like there's also this narrative of you got to like take control of your own life and do what you want in your life. Maybe that's like the social media that I consume, but
I think though that's like also American society, right?
Maybe that is American society.
I feel like a little bit of it is like, you know, our parents or grandparents like bring us here and they're like, you're going to learn the American way. You're going to succeed through this American system. And then when you do stuff that's in an American way that they didn't expect, they're like, wait, you're not supposed to be doing that. But it's like, you know, what did you expect? You know, I'm like culturally American now.
That's actually so true. Because if you think about the family structure, like I think in my parents' generation, you live with the elders versus in America right now, we don't always live with our elders. Like sometimes you do, but like more commonly, you probably want to like separate from your parents in terms of once you have a family. It's hard to bridge that gap though. You almost can't bridge it. You just have to like find ways to like mediate in between. But anyways, going back to that story, I told my grandma I was gonna have a kid this year. And she was like, oh wow. She was like, you better.
She said you better?
You better.
That's a threat or what?
It's like, you better listen. You better follow, you know, what you said. And she was like, stop, don't lie to me. She was like, you better not be lying to me.
Kind of scared to see her.
I have two grandmas. One of them's intimidating, one of them's not. This is the intimidating one.
She's gonna be like, you're still with him?
Yeah. She was like, I don't even care that you're with that James guy anymore. Like, just have a baby with him. Yeah.
Oh my God. Yeah.
One thing that I wanted to touch on is the question of how selfish should you be? Because I think with immigrant families and also not immigrant families, just families where I feel like you grow up seeing your parents work hard and that sort, like you feel selfish when you're making decisions just for yourself, and you also feel selfish when you're experiencing things that your parents didn't experience. So I think the boundary of like selfishness is really hard to define. Like what is truly selfish versus what is just difficult because of your family's situation. Maybe that's not a good question. That was just a statement I wanted to make.
No, I think there is this question in there though. I guess it's the same question. It's like, what do we owe our parents? I'm not sure the answer to that, but one thing I thought of is that I feel like a lot of good parenting is like almost just reverse psychology. Like when you're like, oh, don't look over there, then you want to look over there. And it's like when your parents are like, you need to do this or you need to do that or you need to be a good son to me and like send me money or whatever. You're like probably less inclined to want to do that just because they're like almost trying to force it down your throat. But then if they're just like nice to you and then kind of do all the same kind of parenting that's like good parenting, but don't try to make you do certain things explicitly, like you might just want to help them out anyways just because you're like, oh, they're good parents to me, you know?
I'm going to say I 50% agree because I feel like it's all situational, right? What if your kid is not easy to work with? Like, what if your kid is just not a kind kid and you have to kind of teach them how to be kind. Again, we are not parents, so I feel like this is a hard hypothetical for us to.
I just mean more so like, you know how there's like super strict or Christian parents who are like, you absolutely cannot drink, you cannot like date, you cannot do this or that, and like they're super strict. So then a lot of those kids end up being like party animals and do that unsafely. But then I feel like a lot of the kids where their parents are like, you can tell me anything, I'm not going to judge you, like whatever.
Oh, that's
like,
different than what you were saying though. Yeah.
That's what I was trying to say.
Yeah.
I just feel like for parenting, if there's certain things where you want your kid to live a certain way, it's like actually better to just use the reverse psychology of like just let them live and like feel more free as a person, and they're probably not going to do a lot of the things that you don't want them to do.
This is unofficial advice from Soju with Sarah. If you're a parent, don't necessarily.
I'm just saying, because like a lot of the things that we're like, yeah, we don't feel obligated to do certain things for our parents, but we want to. It's like, I'm not saying our parents did this consciously at all, but I just feel like some level of it is because
it's because they didn't force that narrative.
They didn't
down
force
our throats,
it,
right?
and they didn't because they genuinely, I think, wanted to be good parents to us as people, not just to like serve their own agenda with us. But
so what you're saying is just be kind to your kids, empathize with them, give them freedom and liberty to form their own opinions on things.
And they'll probably just end up being like the type of person you want anyways, is because they're like under your care for so long, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. Again, not formal advice.
Yeah.
But
What do we know? We haven't parented anything other
have...
than this rambunctious, rebellious cat.
If we're applying that to how Moose has turned out, I think that is not good advice.
Yeah, we probably failed.
Moose is he's our producer.
Yeah, I don't think any sort of psychology works with him.
But look at this. We just accepted and acknowledged that he's no longer working for the podcast, and now he's back.
Yeah,
so
when
reverse
we
psychology
least
did
want him. Yeah,
work.
Exactly.
One thing that I just wanted to say before we start wrapping things up is I think freedom from family related pressures is really a privilege. Like, to not have financial obligation, emotional obligation, like any sort of caretaker obligation to family members is really a privilege that people don't talk about enough. A lot of us carry like this burden with us that we owe someone else something in our lives, and like decision making and taking on opportunities or not taking on opportunities all comes down to who we're affecting, what we're affecting, and like that discourse. And I think that's where I just wanted to say, if you are someone that doesn't feel any obligation to your family, really enjoy that. Like, really be grateful that you don't.
I think a nuance I want to add in there, though, is like, I think it's interesting how family obligation actually doesn't necessarily imply anything about class. Like, I think we are lucky because we actually don't feel that much pressure from our parents to have to do things, even though I'm kind of like, but if I don't help you, I feel like your life's not going to be as great. But it's like knowing the reality of what that means. If I don't help them out, I feel like they're not going to live as well as they should be living. But I was just thinking about like, there's probably a lot of entitlement from like wealthier parents too. I mean, there definitely is. Because let's say
I provide for you.
Your parents, parents sent you to a boarding school and they paid like, $250,000 for you to go to boarding school for high school. Then they're paying for your degree because they want you to become a doctor or something. Yep. And then they're like, but well, we just paid another $250,000 just for you to like be a pre-med here. Yeah. So now why are you telling me you want to do this like creative career?
Yeah. Or they set you up with opportunities, internships, things like that.
And
right?
like guilt trip them or whatever it is. And I'm sure that happens a lot. And, I wouldn't know. I watch TV shows and movies where they talk about this stuff.
The most inaccurate display of class difference.
Yeah. But I just think it's interesting how like, it's all related to money, but in a very different way. It's like we think of it as like we need to help our parents like
have more,
but then kids a lot of the times like feel like chained to their parents. Yeah, they're in like some jail cell made by their parents because
Actually, thanks for flagging that nuance. I kind of wrote this down. I feel like we've already mostly talked about it, but I think to kind of like wrap it up, I personally thought that what we owe our parents, for me personally, I feel like what I actually owe my parents is like being present. And my therapist has told me this before because I put a lot of pressure on myself to fulfill needs, for the people around me, to take care and provide and like support. And it's wonderful if you can do that from a financial perspective. But my therapist is always like, if you really think about it, like all your parents want is for you to just call more often and to visit them more often. And so I'm just trying to show up for my family more. I think that's truly something that makes them happier and feel more fulfillment in their lives that I can actually provide if I just make the time for it. And so I think there's that. I feel like I really do owe my parents more of my time and more of my emotional presence, because there's been times where I'm so overwhelmed by life and work and all my other external commitments that when I visit them for the holidays, I'm just sitting in front of a computer working most of the day and I barely get to see them. And that's something that I want to change and like be more available to them for. And I think supporting your family is something that you should like strive to do. It shouldn't be something that you owe your parents, but wherever it makes sense, you should try to support. Like if you can help chip in for like a roof repair, which your brother does, I know, for your family, just like places where you feel like it's okay for you to support, I think it's always worth doing. This is assuming you have a healthy relationship with your family. If you don't, this episode does not apply to you. If you don't, then maybe don't chip in. This is with the assumption that whoever's listening probably feels some sort of indebtedness.
I think I agree a lot with I think you owe your parents time. If you're on good terms with them. Like, do you owe your friends anything? Like, you kind of owe them some amount of like support as a friend, empathy, checking in. Like, ideally you'd be hanging out with them as much as is like reasonable for you.
Prada bag sometimes.
Prada bag?
Yeah.
For food. Are you talking about you?
No, my friends owe me that.
Oh, okay. You want a Prada bag?
Just kidding.
Yeah.
You owe your friends stuff too.
Yeah, like you owe your friends some amount of thing. And like I feel like some amount of thing. You owe your friends some amount, right, of your time, of your friendship. I would hazard to say that you probably owe your parents more than you owe a lot of your friends. And so like if you owe your friends that, then you probably owe your parents at least your time and calling and whatever, which is like, I think when I was home during the pandemic, my parents would all like say all the time, like, oh, it's so nice that you're here. It's so nice that we get to like talk late at night and just talk about random stuff, especially as adults. And so
it makes me want to cry.
Yeah. And I really do think, I mean, I feel bad too, because my dad sometimes is like, yeah, sometimes I want to call, but I know you're busy, so I just don't. And I'm just like,
my mom says the same
yeah,
thing.
and I'm just like, just call, you know, if I can't pick up, then I'll tell you and I'll call you at another time. But just like, if you want to call, just call. Yeah. So that made me sad.
Actually, if you're a soju shoddy with good family ties, pause the video right now or video or episode right now and call your family. Whoever you feel like you want to give them some more of your time. It could be your sister, your brother, your cousin, your kid.
True. This could be a parent
listening, yeah.
Like the reverse of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like give them a call. It could be quick. That's the other thing. I feel like when we call our parents, we expect to sit down for an hour, but sometimes you could just FaceTime for 10 minutes, you know? If your parents know how to use FaceTime.
Well, if you call them, what do they talk to you about? Just curious.
My parents?
Yeah.
I think they always assume something's wrong. They're like, what do you need?
For me, I think it's funny. Or it's just interesting because when I call my dad, my mom's really talkative, so that's nice. Sometimes I don't even have to like think about talking because like she just likes to say so stuff, which I really like. With my dad, sometimes he has things to say, but really it's like if I'm not bringing up a proactive discussion of something or like, oh, I feel this way. Have you felt like that before? Then he'll really open up and tell me stuff about himself. Yeah. But if not, the conversation is just very much like, any updates? Not really. Maybe like this. And he's like, cool. And I'll be like, do you have any updates? And he'll be like, no, pretty much the same. You know,
I don't think that's just your dad. Every dad's like that.
Yeah. I just think it's funny though, because like if I don't like think of something to say that's like substantive and then prompts him to say something else, it's literally just like 3-minute. It could be a 3-minute conversation. I'm like, I didn't call just for this. Like, we need to talk about something.
What is it that all our dads are drinking that they don't have anything to say to us when we call? My dad hangs up on me. Like if I call him and like, let's say I need him to like verify something. Yeah. He's like, okay, bye. Oh no, wait, he doesn't even say bye. He's like, okay, hangs up on me.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's something lacking in the like Asian upbringing over in East Asia. Maybe something about like Confucianism. They don't teach you about how to have conversation. Because I'm sure if you called your mom would just talk about random stuff,
she has so much to talk
about. And if
I
call my mom, she'll just talk about random stuff too. Yeah. But yeah, it feels like Asian dads, or maybe just dads in general, don't open up unless you prompt.
I feel like moms also hold a lot in themselves. Like I feel like they sometimes hold it, you know, like emotions they're having, and so when someone is willing to talk to them, they just unleash.
Yeah, they just have random things to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the last thing I wanted to talk about is what we don't owe our parents. And I think I had a substantial list, but I think it all kind of like wraps up what we were talking about. I think we don't owe them full life decisions and choices. Like we shouldn't be making decisions purely for our family. That is caveated because sometimes I think we do. Like, you know, if your family really just does not have the money and you're the only one that can make money for it, I think that's a different scenario. But I think for a lot of us where our parents are semi self-sufficient nowadays, that we shouldn't owe them our entire life decision to, for example, have a kid and things like that.
Yeah. And also this is very much geared towards like we don't have kids, and so the family obligation we feel is just we're talking about like our parents or our siblings. But I feel like for those of you that do have kids and for when we have kids, like the obligation changes a lot because we're the parents, and we're like, we obviously have a huge obligation to the child that we birth. So
yeah, that's true. I also wrote down we don't owe dreams and aspirations to our parents. Like if they had something they wanted to fulfill and they want you to do it for them, like unless you want to do it, I don't think
that's like the classic Disney Channel lesson. It's like the dad or mom is like, but this is your dream, and then the kid's like, it's your dream, not mine. I want to be a singer.
That was a good enactment. And then the Disney Channel track is like,
yeah. That's like the climax of the movie.
That's usually really funny.
It's like High School Musical, right?
Oh yeah.
Troy's like, I want to be I want to sing or whatever.
No, I don't want to play basketball.
Yeah.
I said sometimes for this one, but sometimes we don't owe our parents or family real-time updates. And the reason I say this is because I get swayed really easily by the people around me. So if I share something, even if it's not my family, and I share it to you and I haven't fully like developed that mindset or thought that I had, I get swayed. Career decisions, I feel like I get swayed a lot. Like if I'm thinking of making a career transition and I tell my parents, I know they will have opinions that will affect me. So I say you don't owe your parents real-time updates because sometimes it's better to share things after. This is not for everyone. I think with some family circumstances where there's a lot of influence, it's probably okay. An analogy that I heard recently is if you have a seed and you see a vision and you see a plant and how that seed will turn into a beautiful plant, maybe don't tell or ask people to look at that seed just yet, because all that they're going to see is a seed. But wait for that seed to become a flower and like share that when it's fully developed. And same with your ideas or like life trajectory. You don't always have to like tell people things in the moment, especially if you need time for that thing to really grow and develop.
Because they're not going to see what you see in your head, right?
Yeah, they don't see the vision.
I think that one of the examples that that person said was like, if you're working on a painting and you have an idea for a painting, don't show it when it's like just thought of. Yeah. Because they're not going to understand what you're talking about. They might shoot your idea down. Mm-hmm. It's like you can be precious about what's going on in your life because you need it to come to fruition more before you show someone else. Yeah.
Moral alignment. You shouldn't ask that the people you love to always align with you on morals and cultural things.
But this is a lot of where like, especially this is a very uniquely American thing, I feel like too, is like political alignment. And like, that's not something we, I guess, as like,
I never talk about politics.
With our families, I feel like it doesn't come up that much. Mm-hmm. But I think especially for like extremely American families, where like their parents grew up here too, and it's like a long history in the US, I feel like that is a really big alignment, like moral alignment. Kids our age being more left-leaning maybe, and then their parents not being like that. So I feel like that's a huge rift that maybe we don't have like a perspective that's as strong because we haven't had to go through that as much. But yeah. But you're saying we don't owe moral alignment with our family.
You don't always have to agree with your family.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I totally agree.
But yeah, that's what I wrote down. Do you think, is there anything that you wanted to add to that
What
list?
do you not owe your parents? Mm-hmm. I don't think I have anything. I think I agree with most of what you said.
I guess that's the episode then. Let us know what you guys think we as a collective owe our parents versus don't owe. And what an amazing time for Moosey to just take over the screen.
Oh, hello, Moosey.
Oh my god.
Oh my goodness.
I find it so cute that this episode he decides to be so affectionate and cuddly today. Not an episode about what we owe our parents and don't.
What do you think he thinks he owes us?
Literally nothing.
Yeah, I don't think
he acts that way too.
Yeah, I don't think he's burdened by anything from us.
If anything, I think he thinks we owe him everything.
I think he's like, I don't owe them cuddles. I don't owe them purring. I don't owe them eating my meals faithfully.
But he thinks we owe him churros, snacks,
Yeah.
ex-
Playing.
playing. But anyways, if this episode resonated with you, well, actually, I hope this episode resonated with you, but if it did, let us know what your experience has been, what you think our family are, like our collective family. I mean, the Soju Shoddy family,
Yeah.
but what you think family dynamics should look like, what you think family relations and indebtment looks like. And yeah.
Also, I know that we have certain experiences with family, and that's kind of the lens we took.
Yeah.
But if you feel like we missed anything or missed the mark on anything based on your own experiences with family, I think we would love to hear about that in the comments as well. So
Yeah.
we'd love to hear your perspectives on family. And I think we are unofficially mom and dad on this podcast to
So
a lot
let us
of
know.
the listeners. So let us know what you feel you owe us and what we owe you.
I think our kids owe us a like, a subscribe, a comment, and a share.
Yeah, maybe at least 3 of the 4.
Yeah.
That's not asking too much.
If you want to be a great kid, then you should owe us 4 of the 4.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And one last thing you guys owe us is to keep working on your dance moves for the second annual dance competition.
I'm already started.
You already started?
Yeah.
Yeah. You didn't participate this year, I feel like.
Oh yeah, I was moderating.
Yeah, you were moderating.
Next
but
year, Moose is going to moderate.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
And then I'll participate. And I'm going to win.
You're going to win?
Because I'm great at
Well,
dancing.
I think our Soju Shotties will see about that next year.
All right. See you guys next year. And also next Friday.
Yeah, and also next Friday.
All right. Bye.
Bye. Bloopers.
It's bloopers. Moose has retired.
He's no longer with the show. He's transitioned careers.
What is he transitioning into?
He's producing for larger shows.
Is it so what you think you can dance?
It's so what? Soju think you can dance?
Come up here. Hi. Hello. Okay, never mind. And I think it's interesting to...
He doesn't like what you have to say.
Everyone also speculates everyone else is a Nepo baby online, which is really funny
Like, you're
to
doing
watch.
well online. You must be a Nepo baby.
Yeah, you don't work a job. You must be a Nepo baby.
Yeah. It's like, no, I'm just a bum.
This is my boyfriend, best friend, partner in crime,
Dance partner,
roommate.
cuddle buddies.
Oh my God. That was the ick.
Was that a ick? Yeah, for me too. That'd be funny.